This inside line is all about stuffing a 37-inch tall tire on the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon with no lift. I'm going to take this thing to an RTI ramp, we're going to go off-road, and I'm going to give you my impressions on what it's like moving from a stock tire to these massive 37s. Now for tires and wheels, I am running a 37 by 1250 Nitto Trail Grappler, and it is paired with a 17-inch AEV Borah DualSport wheel. Now I'm running this in the true beadlock configuration. I have done a full video showing you how to assemble this, and I will put that in the description of the actual YouTube video. Now the reason that I opted for this wheel, it has 5.72 inches of back spacing and a plus 25 millimeter offset. Now this means it's not going to hang out wildly outside of the vehicle, and it's going to keep the scrub radius down, which is very important when you have such a meaty tire like this. I'm trying to keep the steering as sort of light as I can, and I don't want to put excessive wear on the ball joints and wheel bearings. Now another critical sort of aspect of this offset is I knew from testing 35s and no lift with an aftermarket wheel that it was going to be very important to keep the back spacing numerically high so I could keep the tire underneath the fender well as much as I could. This was really important out back for articulation, and something that I thought would allow me to get away at least for a little bit with 37s and no lift. Now I went back with the Trail Grappler because I've been very happy with the Trail Grappler in the past. I've had it on multiple different vehicles, and overall, it's a very dynamic on-road tire. You don't get a lot of road noise out of it. It drives very well, it balances well. But maybe most importantly for me, and especially something I'm going to be doing a lot of off-roading with, is this thing does excellent here in southeastern North Carolina, whether you're in the clay, sand, or mud. It's just a good go-to all-around tire. Very happy with this combo so far. So I want to dive into how this thing is working, what I'm doing with the Jeep, and what's going to come next. Okay, so I wanted to get an idea of just how far I could push this, so I came to Low Range 4x4 here in Wilmington, NC, and put the Jeep on their 30-degree RTI ramp. Now, it's in four-wheel drive with the front sway bar disconnected, and I drove until the back tire literally came off the ground. Now, we're basically at full bump in the front. It could probably go up maybe half an inch. But we are most definitely touching here on the inside and this outer portion of the front fender. It's not so bad that it's causing damage here, but I think on the trail we could definitely have a problem. Turning would be an issue for sure. Now, I have a rugged ridge stubby front bumper. That makes a big difference in the clearance here. So I haven't had any rubbing issues or any problems on the street, but I think on the trail this will be fine, but this would be potentially an issue, especially on the inside of this inner fender here. But still super stoked on how well this thing actually drove up here. I actually thought I was going to have the front sway bar still connected to be able to even barely get on here, but this is no problem. Let me show you the back wheel well. Now, this is probably the most impressive thing. It's a very massive wheel well opening, and yes, we do touch a little here in this plastic, but I can still move it. It's still very light. Now, on the back side of the wheel well, you have plenty of room. And on the front side of the wheel well, there's definitely, it's touching just a little bit right there, but there's still room, which is amazing. A lot of this I credit to this plus 25 millimeter offset of this AEV wheel. Pretty, important to have this thing tucked in here, because I think if it was sticking out anymore, this Trail Grappler would be grabbing this part of the fender flare. So very cool. Just another way to kind of test this and see how it works. And let's keep this thing going and tell you a little bit more about how I feel about 37s on the Jeep in general. Now, it's definitely worth mentioning, moving up from a 35 to a 37-inch tall tire has affected the Jeep in two significant ways. Number one, I have dropped down from 16 miles per gallon to around 14.8. So I definitely took a fuel economy hit. And the other thing, which I think is very important, is I'm no longer seeing 8th gear. Now, I will see it occasionally under 55 miles per hour, but if there's any sort of headwind, or if I'm on the freeway and really moving along 70 miles per hour, it just will not go into it. 7th gear, it will stay, but it definitely likes 6 more than anything. And that's just one of those deals where, again, I've got a larger tire now, it's more mass. It is worth noting that I have recalibrated for the 37s. I'm using a Taser JL Mini to accomplish that. So my speedometer is fairly accurate. All the shift points are where they need to be. So that part is taken care of. My opinion, I think putting a set of aftermarket differential gears in that are higher than these 410s is going to be worth it, not only to get the power back where it feels a little stronger, but to reclaim that 7th and 8th gear on the highway. Now, I will say, running a 37-inch tall tire, you do have to consider where you're going to put your spare. Now, I have seen others have good luck running a full-size spare in the stock location on the stock wheel. I did not want to put my spare underneath there and go off-road. I just don't think it's going to end up being very nice and kind to the wheel for the type of wheeling that I want to do with the Gladiator. So for now, I've got it on top of my AA Products rack system here. It works well for when I need to use the bed. If I have my rooftop tent on, I can easily drop the tire in the bed, but I am sacrificing a little bit of cargo space by doing that. I'm not sure what my long-term full-size spare solution is going to be. For right now, this works fine. It will fit underneath in the stock location, so if I want to go on a road trip with the family and I really need to use all my bed space, that's not a big deal. It'll definitely do it. I just don't want it down there for when I'm going off-road. After putting it on the RTI ramp, I had a pretty good idea of what kind of issues I would have if I took it off-road. Now, that being said, I wanted to at least do a little bit of light wheeling to see how it would do. And surprisingly, even with the sway bar disconnected, it did okay. I never ran into an issue where I tore up the fender flare or did anything like that. The axle kind of moved and articulated pretty freely and didn't really have an issue. Now, that being said, I didn't go push this on a big rock trail, as I knew I was going to have an issue if I did that. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, I guess, yes, it does work in this configuration, at least, on-road without problem. Off-road, it's obvious that you're going to have an issue with this 37 connecting with the front fender, so you eventually need to do something. Now, my plan, I want to see, just at least initially, what's the least amount of lift I can do and still run a 37 on this platform. I don't really subscribe that, you know, it needs to be low because this thing has a long wheelbase, but just out of curiosity, at this point, knowing how well it worked with no lift, I want to see if I can just get away with a little bit of lift for really not a lot of money and see how it works. We hope you guys are liking these videos. Please subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. If you got any questions for me, you can always find me at Ali Mansour Editor on Instagram. And until then, I hope to see you guys on the trail soon. Bye-bye.